So this is a different kind of video that I usually make. I mean, not the unscripted part, that's for sure. But more like this has been a topic I've kind of wanted to talk about, and every time I've sat down to try and maybe write something or really get a chance to talk about it, I've never felt comfortable talking about it whatsoever. But I don't know. I guess today it just felt like, yeah, let me just talk about it. It's been something that's been bothering me for a long time. I mean, it more so has to do with, well, I guess, kind of the gaming scene as a whole. Oh, for me. Yeah, sure. There are a lot of things I could talk about when it comes to the gaming scene. I mean with comp- companies, fans, tons of stuff. Yeah, it's not perfect. Not at all. But more of one thing that's bothered me. And I feel like it's something that I've noticed more and more as time has gone on it. Something I just don't think it's a good thing to do. Who is, I guess, more of how people criticize or really talk about games more so. But heck, not even just games. I could talk about like TV shows, movies, work, acting. Really, a lot of topics that have to do with art, artwork. Mainly more how people criticize it more so. Oh wait, no, the negative is light. Right, where if people don't like what they see or don't like what they watch, that's fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But my biggest thing is how people express their distaste or disliking towards something. It's to where, just for context, it's about a couple years ago, I watched a review of Mega Man X3. Won't say who reviewers are because I'm not going to try and name names, and I don't want to make them look like a bad guy at all. But I watched the review, and for those who don't know, X3 is a game where for a lot of people, at least the majority of the opinion tends to be, some people like it, and it tends to be a mixed bag, where some people like it, some people don't, and the flaws are definitely there because of, well, the upgrade system, the fact that bosses do a lot of damage to you when just by touching there's the really poorly explained chip system where you get upgrades to your weapons, and the game never tells you about it. And once you equip one of them, you can't just replace it with another one. Not to mention, there's also the gold armor that basically gives you all the upgrades of the chips, making experimentation with the chips almost feel pointless when you could just get them all at the end of the game, aim and just not use them. But pretty good review. But then I watched someone else do the same thing, same day. Okay, another person I like to watch, and it felt like they said the same thing again, where they talked about almost the same kind of critiques, like bosses taking too much damage, chip system not being really well defined, finding also the same positives too, like the music. Like say the music, for instance, it's in the gameplay still feeling exactly as almost like it was before, which kind of bothered me a little bit. I was thinking, wait, it's kind of weird. What? Like, I almost felt like I just watched the same review again. And I don't know why. I just felt like I watched the same thing again. And the longer that sat with me, the more it bothered me. To where it felt like that was the case for a lot of different series. Sonic is a big one I could easily go to for me, where I feel where I feel like that. Where, for a while, it felt like everyone was divided into sections of fans. There were classic fans, people who grew up with the Genesis games and loved those games to death, and feel that the newer games just don't really end up or are just lacking in compared to the old days. The quote-unquote adventure era fans that grew up in the middle of the series, whether it be getting in from Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast, or some Nintendo fans with the GameCube. You've been loving those games. Aims in finding some games either not as good or not as bad. Depends. Or at least it depends. And then quote unquote newer generation fans or modern fans that got into the series in the late 2010s. Well, in the 2010s or late 2010s, depending on which one you want to see it. Yeah, that love the newer games and have gone back to the old ones and sometimes say either they're really good or not as good. Good. Or at least that is the general sense that some people that I've heard or gotten or say when people kind of describe these three factions. And my biggest thing that bothers me is like, why are we splitting all these fans up into factions of where they grew up? Oh, like, I wouldn't like. It'd be like telling like say Star Wars, for instance. I don't know much about Star Wars whatsoever, or how the fan base for that one is, but it'd be like saying, oh, you're an older generation Star Wars fan, and so you like this, and then saying you're a newer generation Star Wars fan, so that means you like this, like, what? Like, excuse me, because, well, I could say my experience, and it's like, my first Sonic game was Sonic Colors, so technically wouldn't that make me a modern era fan? Then, I mean, yes, but I've also played Sonic Adventure 2, and I loved that game to death. It might be one of my favorite Sonic games in the entire series. And then later on, in 2017, I played through Sonic Mania, and I also consider that one of the best Sonic games ever made. In one of my personal favorites that I feel like I can go back to and have a good time no matter what mood I'm feeling in. So, what kind of fan does that make me, by that definition? Because I also love Sonic Colors, and I played it on this channel, and I absolutely had a fun time. I mean, I love the music, I love the more the jokes, more so for me that I found them funny. And I love how everything looks too, and I found the Whisper fun to use. I consider that one of my favorite Sonic games as well. So, what kind of fan does that make me is my question. And because, well, I don't mind quote-unquote adventure era games, most of them, and I can get a lot of enjoyment out of classic era Sonic games. So, what does that kind of make me by that logic? And I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people in these quote-unquote subcategories. Or is that, to me, it just makes it feel kind of pointless to divide people into groups. And not to mention, just hating on other people in specific groups that, to me, I just think it's pointless. It's just because, oh, this person's a quote-unquote classic era fan or a quote-unquote modern era fan. Disgusting thing. They don't know what makes Sonic good. Or classic era. Oh, they don't know what makes Sonic good. Or modern. Oh, they don't know how good Sonic is. Like, you're all saying the same exact thing in all Sonic games, and you're all saying that no one knows what makes a good Sonic game. I think there's a problem here. If we're all saying the same thing, we're all pointing a finger at each other, other in both directions, and where everyone has a different definition of what a Sonic game means to them. And that there are so many different things that Sonic has done. So, can you really say one person, quote-unquote, knows more about what a Sonic game should be more than the other person? Especially in some cases where some people may not even made anything Sonic related in that case. Do we put those guys up on a pedestal? So like Sonic fan game creators, do we put those up there and say, hey yo, you know more about what makes a Sonic game? What's a good Sonic game? You know more, clearly more than I do, because you made a fan game or you made a fan comic. You clearly know more than I do. Dude, like, is there levels to this where we're on a system where like everyone kind of like, you know, general fans who know about this stuff, they play a lot of games have their own opinions. Then like higher tier where apparently they have more to say, or yeah, we should listen to them. They're the only ones that actually make sense. Then is that a good idea? Like, does that make any real sense? Because I don't think it does. Because they're both Sonic fans. One expresses their love for Sonic in a different way than another person. And how exactly does one person know what a Sonic game is more than the other? Like, does this person, say, work for Sega? Have they made multiple Sonic games and seen the changes, growths, things that have changed and been kept around while other things have been lost to time or forgotten? And is it really fair to say that that's the case, or heck, even the idea that Sonic has to be this one thing, because clearly for a lot of people it means something different and to someone else, or means something different to them. Where there are so many iconic scenes that many people point out, like the opening cutscene of Sonic CD, or the helicopter scene in the first stage of Sonic Adventure 2 with City Escape. For instance, heck, even Sonic Frontiers, where I haven't finished the game, and personally, but I know there are quite a number of people who do love the game. And I'm sure there's many scenes like Giganto boss fight, I won't say, but I loved it. Just in case anyone has to play the game, but I loved that boss fight. It was I think it's one of my favorite Sonic boss fights in general that I've faced throughout the entire series personally. But like, they're from all different eras. So can I really say one, quote-unquote, is more Sonic than the other? Like, you see how that doesn't really make any sense? And how, quote-unquote, one era Sonic apparently is more Sonic than another era of Sonic? Like, they're all Sonic, the name's on the tin, you know? No, and they're all part of the series. So, how exactly is one game more of a one thing than another? Something that we can't even quantify, even. I mean, like, what are we quantifying by how something's more or less Sonic? What are we quantifying? I'm that like, oh my god. Like, this game has quote-unquote more screen time for Sonic? Okay, then I could say Adventure 2 clearly is not enough Sonic because there's a hero in Dark Path. Like, do you see how that doesn't really make any sense? Ends by saying, oh, it's less Sonic because less screen time, for instance? Or, heck, Sonic Frontiers. Here's that. Oh, you know, we split it up between other characters, so I mean, nah, we don't really see that. It's kind of half and half. It's mid Sonic, medium Sonic. Not a lot of Sonic, but just not enough Sonic. And then Sonic CD. Oh yeah, now that's Sonic right there. Almost 90% Sonic. Over 90 to almost 100% Sonic on it because you see him all the time and he's always on screen. I mean, so this game is 100% Sonic. Or heck, do I want to go say like Sonic 1? 1 by that level is the most Sonic has ever been? Because you always see him. He's the only character you see. See, he's the only real character you play as for the whole game, so he's 100% Sonic. Sonic, like... Does that really make sense? Does any of that really make sense? And, you know? No, because there's no real measure for what we're really basing it on. Or I feel... Or, let me rephrase that more. I feel like people do have a way of measuring it. I mean, or definitely have a lot of concepts. Some pretty cool concepts that I think could lead to a lot of great ideas. These in great discussion. But it almost feels kind of invisible. Like, there is a way to measure how much a Sonic game is like a Sonic game. But what those points are is, well, we don't know. No, and I'm not talking just about, say, opinions, for instance. Because that's one thing. If it's an opinion, then, well, it's uniquely yours. Yours and based on your own thoughts. But I'm more so talking about objectivity, where, I'm gonna be honest, I really don't like how that term's been used willy-nilly all the time. When people talk about games in general, well, but that's something completely different. Okay, friend, I want to make my point about Sonic. So, let's say for instance, one person has an idea of what makes a good Sonic game, and maybe they may base it on their experiences with, say, Sonic CD, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sonic Adventure, and Sonic Adventure 2. Ooh, like a Sonic who, sure, may not talk as much in some cases, in the case of CD, but when he does, he's confident, maybe a little cocky and overconfident, but he's still the daring blue hero that they know him as. And then let's say a newer person who, let's say they got in with games like, say, Sonic and the Black Knight. Sonic and the Black Knight, for instance. Then Sonic Unleashed, where they see a Sonic who's quite charismatic, where, yeah, he definitely is confident in his abilities, but he cares about the world around him and the people that live in it. And it could sometimes give very meaningful advice that can sometimes change people's lives in some instances. Which one are we gonna say is quote-unquote more Sonic? Is the person who grew up with Sonic CD, D, Adventure, those games? Do they quote-unquote know more about what Sonic is than, say, the person who didn't play those games and instead grew up with some of the more story-focused games where a lot of people love. Unleashed in Black Knight, where I've heard many people say it's one of the best stories in the entire series, at least video game wise. And that they love to see a return to something like this. But then wait a minute, is that really Sonic? Because technically, if we're gonna go by that moniker of it has to be an older generation game for it to be Sonic, then technically that's not Sonic. Because they grew up with those games, the later games that came after the other games that are quote-unquote more like Sonic. So therefore, these games cannot really be Sonic games and are less Sonic. Because the Sonic in these games acts a little differently to those other Sonics. Oh, but wait! Sonic Adventure has 6 storylines, so that means we don't even see Sonic for a huge majority of the game. Well, I guess that means that bumps it all the way down, I guess. That's but Sonic Unleashed. Oh, we see a lot of Sonic, 90%. and almost as much as Sonic CD. You know? No, so maybe it really is more like like. You see how that doesn't even make sense? And why are we like, if we're using screen time to constitute what's more Sonic or not? You see how little sense that makes? Makes and how we're not really describing Sonic at all. We're just saying how much screen time he has in each game. And because, cool, Sonic, the video game character on the cover, has more screen time in this game than another game. What the heck does more Sonic even mean in that context, if we're going to be discussing that? What does that even mean? Like, what does that mean? Because I didn't even answer that question at all. Notice how I never even answered the question. I just talked about how much screen time he had in each game. And we're not really answering anything. We're just talking about how much screen time he has. As in, it kind of defeats the point. Only if, well, we're supposed to be talking about what's more Sonic or not, because there is nothing. There really is nothing. Nothing in those arguments. All I'm literally saying is just, he had this much screen time in one game, or this much screen time in another. Oh, okay, but then what about character, for instance? That's because, you know, writing is also a big part as well. Now, where some games write Sonic in one way, other writers write him in another way. Wait, which one is quote-unquote more Sonic? Sonic World. I'll ask in a different scenario. Let's say this person got into the series through Sonic 06. Where despite it having good qualities and promising ones, and the story is rife with some pretty big plot holes, or things that make it very hard to believe, such as in the case of Elise not crying for 10 years despite being an 8-year-old and losing her own father, or Silver having the Blue Chaos Emerald and giving it to Elise in the past, questioning how did Sonic get all 7 Chaos Emeralds for all those other times, like Sonic 3, Adventure 2, yeah, you know what I mean. I mean, I'm sure people have talked about that. But then let's look at another game. Sonic Lost World. Where that's a game where a lot of people will say they don't like the story. Heck, some people have pinned it as one of the worst in the entire series. For writing, some missed potential, the Deadly Six not really going anywhere and being very simplistic villains. An argument with Sonic and Tails that even I'll admit kind of felt forced, even though the idea is an interesting mechanic that I'd like to actually see utilized in one of the games at some point. And sometimes writing where I'll admit, sometimes it feels like it kind of goes between the line of seriousness while being trying to be funny and lighthearted. Where I like when they do both, but it sometimes makes this weird little clash between the two. So that's two stories where I pointed out things that I don't really like, and let's say there were two people who were introduced to it by those, and people have had some of their complaints with Sonic in both of those stories, or as well. But then which one is more Sonic by that case? Well, I mean the one before, 06 has, Jason Griffith voicing Sonic. He's saving people. He has that one cutscene in the opening of the game where he goes, "I'm Sonic the Hedgehog," and all that jazz. But he also falls in love with Elise. And seems to have a crush. And cares a lot about Elise. Or in some scenes where you might think he might say something witty, witty or talk about something, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he doesn't. Or in Sonic Lost World, where sometimes he can joke a lot. It can almost feel like he has an ego. Too big an ego, in fact. To where he accidentally ruins Eggman's plan and causes the Deadly Six to go mayhem. And simply, he tried to destroy the world, with them almost succeeding, in fact. And not to mention Sonic's Reckless Fist almost got Tails turned into a robot. But so, can't really say this is Sonic's best outing. Or his best adventure, I'd say. But, which one's more Sonic? Oh yeah, if you don't have opinions on, say, Jason Griffith or Roger Craig Smith as voice actors, then we have to throw that in too, unless voice acting's not a factor. But considering that it's a pretty big discussion topic between some people with voice acting, yeah, I think we're gonna count it in this one. So, which one's more Sonic, guys? Which one? Which one? No, tell me, which one? One is supposed to be more Sonic. And you'll notice you'll might get different answers to that question. And everybody, no. Maybe it's a little unfair that I'm talking about the quote-unquote not as popular Sonic games. I'm gonna talk about some more popular ones. Maybe to be fair. Here, let's go Sonic Colors and Sonic Heroes. Those, for instance. In games where their stories are quite minimal. But there are fans of both. Oh, which one's more Sonic, guys? Which one, guys? Tell me, please. Which one? One has Roger Craig Smith and one has Ryan Drummond. But one has to be more Sonic, right, guys? One has to be. Do we say Sonic Heroes because it came out first? Or do I say Sonic Colors because, they've been doing this for almost, 20 years? Years at this point? So, technically they'd have a better grasp of what they want Sonic to be. But wait, maybe they changed it because of the backlash they got from Sonic 06. And not really in lukewarm reception to Sonic Unleashed. So maybe they changed it. And maybe that one's not really Sonic, but it is Sonic, but it's not really Sonic. But you see how we keep going to the same question over and over and over and over again? We just get caught in a loop. Where we're talking about this thing, and then trying to talk about this thing, and trying to describe this thing, without describing what this thing really is. Is where everyone has an idea. Everyone can agree on that there's an idea. But an actual definition? I don't know about that one, Chief. I don't know. Oh. And a lot of the time, whenever I see people answer this question, it comes from their opinions, their own personal experiences, what they believe makes a Sonic game a Sonic game, or just Sonic in its world. Sonic in its world. And I know I didn't really talk about a lot of, some negative things I could talk about, but I don't really want to be honest. It's because I feel, one, people already do that enough as it is, and two, I don't think that's really a constructive way to really solve anything. I don't really think that solves anything by just ragging on everyone who talks about things negatively or positively. There's no point. That literally solves nothing. Nothing. It's like I'm literally complaining about someone for not liking something. Like, they're free to dislike something, regardless of whatever those feelings are or not. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you have to like this, You have to like this stuff because look at all what it does. Look at what it does. Look at all this great stuff it does. Cool. That could be great stuff to you. It may not be the same case for another person. And, you know? And I don't think it's a good idea to just judge people based on, oh, they grew up in this era of gaming, or this era of gaming, or this era of gaming, or aiming. Like, they've all played video games. We can all agree we've all played video games, different kinds, different series, on different consoles, and in different ways too. But we all play video games, or at least fans of video games. And you know, so I feel, at least to me, when it comes to Sonic, one say, trying to think of what's more Sonic doesn't really work or make sense. And if people want to try and talk about that, then I feel people need to, or at least a group of people, or a large portion of the community, for instance, if this is a solution I could offer, could try to discuss what that could be. If we want to go for a huge general definition. And even if I personally think that it should be a subjective topic, if a large portion of the community, let's say, talks about from all different spectrums, all different backgrounds, talked about that and came to a common agreement. I mean, if we wanted to, for instance, all came from a common agreement, all different starting points, all different writers, all pointing out the strengths and weaknesses of each, then I think we might have something. Then I think there's something that could be talked about. No, but even if that's the case, please don't let what quote-unquote part you got it part in, or what era you quote-unquote grew up in, or what you like, quote-unquote define what you should or shouldn't like, or that your opinion is more or less valid. Because I've heard so many people who have said or dismiss their own opinions just because they're not in the majority. Or so many people have said that, or made a passing joke of oh, I like Sonic Forces, but not a lot of people do, and it's a really unpopular opinion, so I guess my opinion is wrong. How can your opinion be wrong? It's your opinion! How can it be wrong? Please tell me how it can be wrong. No, objectively wrong. Do you know objectivity and opinion don't mix? There's a difference. An opinion is what you think. It's what your experience is, what you think of the game. And objectivity is removing that when we have no opinions whatsoever. Remember, and considering how many people have opinions on these games, and but wait, just to point something out. Now, if the majority of people have an opinion on something, and that is the common opinion in the community, how exactly is that an objective opinion? It's still an opinion, and yeah, more people are saying it, and more people agree with it. But at the end of the day, it's still an opinion, in that a lot of people share. Does it make your opinion any less right or wrong? No! No, your opinion's just as valid as literally an entire group. Like, it doesn't even matter how many people agree with you or not on this opinion. It's your opinion. You can refine it, you can make it make more sense to try and explain it to other people. But it's also your opinion! In other words, right? So I don't really think it makes sense to separate these two, or try to treat opinions of games as fact, because they're not. It ultimately, and I mean quite literally, goes against what opinion and objectivity really are supposed to be. At least in my opinion. My opinion. It's not objective fact. I have sinned. But if it's an opinion, that's something you can claim for yourself. If it's something you believe in, and if you believe in it, I think you have a right to say, and other people people, whether they agree with you or not, can respect that. That you don't gotta agree with it, you don't gotta disagree with it, you can at least respect it. Even if you agree to disagree at the end of the day. Hey, if we're trying to go objective, I feel it's a different ballgame. In where you really have to discard any kind of preconceived notions, or heck, even where you grew up with this theory. Serious, if we're gonna go like that, and that's almost next to impossible in some cases because, well, we all grew up with different parts of the theory. So we all got introduced to it at different points in time, or with different games, or with different media. We all got introduced to it in different ways. And to say that one is quote unquote more than the other, or to treat the others as nothing else or not even close, well, it doesn't feel right, at least to me. Especially when all of us have gone to different points. And the fact that Sonic and the people behind it have changed. There are always different people working on these games. Always different people who are marketing them, making merchandise, coding levels, writing the stories, making the music. There are so many differences to take in. And everyone has their own opinion on which one fits in with Sonic and which one doesn't. And to try and treat it all as if, well, there's only one real way to really make it work, it has to be like this, or just taking the best elements from one thing and putting it there. I mean, if you're trying to make, the dream Sonic game, then congrats. I think that's a good way to go about it. But in terms of trying to say which one is quote-unquote objectively better, I don't know, I feel like it needs a lot of work. And even then, I don't really agree with that idea. Since I still feel like part of it is still opinion. And especially a lot of cases when we're talking about a community-wide opinion. It's still an opinion at the end of the day, even if it's a big senses of one. And I don't think it's fair to take it out on people, whether they're in the group or not, for their own opinions, and whether they share it with someone or not. Or share the same opinion. And even I can admit with that video about X3, where maybe it was a little unfair of me to really say that more so. And I probably could have used more different examples, but I feel like that's the one that really got me started on this whole kind of thought process. And I was saying, well, there's probably a lot more I could talk about, but I think I'll just stop this one. But at least the point that I can make, at least for this part, because I do plan to keep that other stuff in the beginning, even if it may not really tie into all this. This is that I feel like with stuff like this, I feel like there needs to be a definition. If we're going to be saying such a big, grandiose statement as this game is this or another, then I feel like there needs to be a clear definition instead of just this invisible line that people know exists, or maybe even pretend exists. This, for instance, but never really define it, because it makes it confusing to really even talk about it. It feels more like an excuse to put people on a pedestal or put people down, and when they either match up with that majority opinion or not. And only serves, to me, to divide people more than anything. Really just divide them into different sections of groups, and make people hate one another, all because they have something indifferent. One little tiny thing that may seem inconsequential or matter very little, will starting and sparking an entire argument that get the entire community involved, which, at least to me, sometimes feels almost unnecessary. Almost completely unnecessary. Do we really need to be arguing or having a whole gang war over, say, someone's opinion on a voice actor, on music, on how something's written, or a game, or if someone even likes a character, or likes and dislikes certain things, No, I don't really think there really needs to be a big deal about it, because, again, it's an opinion at the end of the day. And I think that a lot of people, well, not bad at all, totally not bad. I don't think they're bad people whatsoever. I think could do better trying to define that, or heck, maybe even build a bridge so that way people or entire communities can get better at talking about this kind of stuff, and maybe get a general consensus of what a majority of people want. At least I say. Here, one that allows for all the kinds of ideas that sure may not fit the mold, but they're still at least accepted, or at least given the time of day where people actually notice it or say, that's an interesting idea. I'm not sure it would work, or I'm not sure I agree with it, but it is an interesting idea, and I can see where you got the idea from. Or at the very least, we can agree to disagree. Which, not always the happiness solution, but sometimes that can be the best solution. I don't think it's really worth having a whole internet or Twitter war based on very small things that, again, I don't think it's really, well, no. At least something that I don't think is enough to start a whole war for, or get a bunch of people in to get, or have onlookers look into it. Yeah, but again, that's just me talking out of my butt. That's just me talking out of my butt. And I do got more to say on this, but I'll probably stop here for this one. And if anyone was listening, thanks. It actually means a lot. It actually really means a lot to you. Did you like me rambling this much? And until then, see y'all later.